Well, welcome to Soul Sentred, the podcast. I'm Janie Morris and I'm your host, and I'm so excited to have you here with us. Thanks so much for tuning in and choosing Soul Sentred, the podcast, which is all about health, well-being, fitness and longevity. Every episode that we are going to be bringing you has got a guest that has got a story to tell. It's got something that might inspire you, motivate you or educate you on something that you might want to do for your own personal health, well-being, fitness and longevity. And I'm really thrilled for our very first guest today. She's extraordinary. I've known her for, actually, I was working it out this morning coming in. I think it's about 14, 15 years now. And you and I know when we first met, it was in front of this interesting old house. But anyway, we'll get to that, I'm sure. Clarke is a household name in Adelaide media. She's known for her #1 rating shows on Mix 102.3, Triple M. She took the breakfast radio show on ABC to heights that they'd never been to before. But beyond the microphone, Ali has walked a really powerful path in recent times, and one that took an unexpected turn in 2024. So in today's conversation, I hope that you, our audience, enjoy what Ali has got to share with you as much as I'm absolutely honoured to bring it to you. Ali Clarke, welcome to Soul Sentred, the podcast.
Wow, thank you. The pressure.
No pressure. Ali, first, before we get into everything, I just wonder if you might want to just give our audience a little bit of background on you leading up to 2024, what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah, sure. It was full steam ahead. Everything goes a million miles an hour. 3 young children, working breakfast radio, which is, horrendous shift hours, but then also filling up my days with hostings and a whole heap of other extra work that I was doing. And thankfully, people were talking about things like menopause and perimenopause a lot more than certainly what our mums would have gone through. And I was just noticing a little bit of soreness in my joints, and my husband maybe noticed I was getting a bit grumpy. And so I had an appointment to see my GP, who is an absolute rock star, and I'm very fortunate to have her in my corner. And she said, well, before we look at anything and HRT or anything like that, have you had a mammogram? And I said no. There had been no breast cancer history in my family. There were no lumps, nothing like that, no bumps, no whatever. And she said, well, let's get a mammogram to get a baseline, make sure everything's okay. And that was it. And it was supposed to be a box-ticking exercise until on a random Wednesday afternoon on the way to do school pickup, it wasn't. And they called me back in for more scans under the guise that, don't stress, 70% of people that we call back in, it just turns out to be something either benign or something wrong with the scan. But, yeah, pretty soon we worked out that there was something going on.
And in that moment, when you were doing school pickup and you got that news, how did you, because this is something, unfortunately, that a lot of women, have go through and are going through now, especially at young ages like yourself, at 47, which is, is something you don't think would happen.
Well, I thought 50 was kind of the marker.
Yeah.
Right? I just thought that was the marker. But no, that's when you go on to the government checklist. That's when you get reminders from the government at the age of 50. So if you ever have any doubts, any qualms, or, and I'm not saying this to terrify or frighten people, but if there's certainly history or high risk, you should be going and checking this out via mammogram earlier. But in my head, I just had 50 as kind of the marker. So
you got that news and then you went in for further tests, and then what happened?
So my husband came to those, and I was.
How are you feeling in that?
Well, it's I got through talking to the lady on the phone, and then I hung up and promptly burst into tears.
Yeah.
Just that kind of. That was just pure shock. At that stage, though, I was listening to her and she's saying, don't stress, it could be nothing. And so I was holding on to that with, 2 hands. I rang a girlfriend of mine who, unfortunately, but fortunately for me, because I had someone to lean on who'd gone through it, just the month and a half prior, and spoke to her about what it was like for her. And so we worked through that. But I was supposed to go. The one little bit of doubt in the back of my head was I was supposed to go on Tuesday. This was on the Wednesday. I was supposed to go the following Tuesday to Bali by myself because I was going to go and reset my life because I was pretty, over radio and a few other things that were going on. And so that was the plan. And I said, well, what about, to the lady booking me in, what about we go when I come back? I'm only going for 4 or 5 days. She said, oh, no, we'll fit you in before that. And that was a bit that made me go, oh, this is more than just a shadow or something, there's something actually happening. So my husband came in. And they're incredible. Breast Screen SA, I've got friends that have been reticent to go and get mammogram because of the fear factor. They were wonderful. It was one of the most amazing situations and amazing levels of care that I've ever been through. So all of a sudden I was getting biopsied and we were getting the results in a few days' time, which they couldn't get before I went to Bali. I decided to go myself and found out the moment I touched down. Really?
Touchdown in Bali?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that flight sucked.
Yeah.
I was planning my funeral around about over, I don't know, like Northern Territory.
Oh. So, well, that's interesting because as you just said, like the whole reason that you actually planned to go to Bali in the first place was because of life in general with your career in particular, and you wanted to use that time to reset. And then this little layer, and I'm not saying that to make it any less, but this layer comes on top of it as well. How did that then, for the time that you were in Bali, how did that contribute to what your initial intention was for Bali?
Oh, completely changed it.
Yeah.
Completely changed it.
Yeah.
Legally, I can't say what I was going to do,
right.
And where I was going to go with it. But all of a sudden, it changed the focus from me looking outward to looking inward, and not just into myself, but into our family, like our little 5 network. And my mum and dad, for those that don't know, my only sibling has a disability, so they're his full-time carers. So that was kind of the immediate focus on how it was all going to affect them and what was going to happen.
Yeah. So you came back from Bali.
Yep.
And then the whole process of getting everything started and booked in and done happened.
And even then, when I got the results, the worst time was between the biopsy and getting the results, because that's when your mind plays havoc. That's when you go through all the what ifs and, what if I'm not there for my daughter's wedding? And, and it's that really fatalistic way, and it's hard when you've got days in between those times to come at it any other way. But when I got the results, it was hormone positive, which is the better type of tumour. They were very, very small. There was only 2 of them. So I was quite, not ambivalent. I thought it was a wake-up call. I thought it was, okay, well, but that's okay. We can deal with this. And so it was only going to be a lumpectomy. But unfortunately, further scans, deeper scans, discovered that there was actually 4 of them. And all of a sudden, I'd gone from thinking, oh, it's only just going to be a short procedure, to I'm going to lose my whole boob, which included my nipple. And I was really upset to lose my nipple. For some reason, that was in my head. I don't know why.
I actually am going to come to that, because I did, I didn't need to do research because I do know, the story and the announcement, right? But I don't, and again, I don't mean to make light of this, but when you actually made that point public, I did think, there's the alley humour.
I know.
There's the eternal optimist, right?
Well, that is.
It's like, what do I do with this?
Yeah, that is the way that I deal with things.
Yeah.
Whenever it gets too hard, I do retreat into humour.
Yeah.
But.
So Ali, then, as we've said, like your career is fantastic over a couple of decades, certainly in the media, but also in the sporting industry, and you're very passionate in that area as well, and you're very health and fitness conscious, which is a great matching and pairing, obviously, with your great hubby Maddie and whatever. So in your career in radio, having armed with all of that information that you had about your personal life and what may or may not be ahead of you, then you go back to work. Then you go back to morning breakfast radio, right, in Adelaide. You made the announcement public. What led to that moment, and why did you do that?
Originally, my boss said, "Oh no, well, we won't tell anyone. Why? We'll just say that you're going." And I just thought that was incredibly strange. When you do this type of broadcasting, it's an absolute privilege, and people trusted me for all of my career with their stories, with their work, with whatever they might choose to share with me. And considering that we were a female-focused radio station, I just thought, why wouldn't I share that this is specifically what I was going through? Now, also, the moment in commercial radio someone disappears from me, the speculation goes rife. So let's knock that on the head. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought, I think it was less about me. It was just more, right, this is what I'm going through. And then we threw open the phones. I still remember a woman who rang up and, she was in tears talking about the first time she went out after having a double mastectomy, and she was walking through the food court at Marion Shopping Centre here in Adelaide, and she just felt everyone was staring at her. I can still remember the emotion in and around that. And lots of people have asked why I've shared it. And I kind of think, well, why wouldn't I in the position that I held? And also, look, I had no idea that it would do so much good. Like, it wasn't that calculated at all. It wasn't, well, if I do this and then we can do a movement and then we can, get people to, it wasn't that at all. It was just more matter of fact. I've always shared my life. That's part of my job. And those guys, the mix, when I was on mix, they were my family.
And it's interesting that you say that you didn't do it with the intention to start a movement and make it a grander situation. However, in your public announcement, it actually did do that, Ali. Yeah. You actually activated and mobilised women across Australia who actually heard your announcement, heard your personal story, and actually made them start booking in for mammograms. My understanding is with Breast Screen SA in particular, they had record numbers over the 24 hours after you made the announcement.
Yeah, it was, that was unbelievable. The only person that galvanised certainly Breast Screen SA that had the figures was Kylie Minogue, so I'm second to Kylie. So I always joke that I'm Danny Minogue. It's great. Danny Minogue in the breast cancer world. But yeah, like that to me was... That to me was just so comforting. And I don't look for reasons and things. I think things happen, for all sorts of bit of luck, bit of fate, bit of quirk, bit of, you work hard for it, whatever. But that kind of gave me a reason to at least find positive, to it. And even to this day, I think just yesterday I got another text from somebody who went and got tested because they booked in after me and they'd been putting it off and they'd found it, but they found it early. So that just, wow, what a privilege. Yeah. What a privilege to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So then the next part of the process was you did go in and you had your treatments and you had your surgery but being you, Ali, staying home and healing was not something that you really wanted to do. Can you talk to us about what happened?
Yeah. Look, without a doubt it's major surgery, and I don't want to... I want to be really clear. This was I hate using the word journey because it makes me feel like a reality TV star, but my journey is going to be very different to everybody else's. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned through this is that everybody goes through things like this individually. So I don't want anyone to think that they are less than, more than, whatever by me sharing mine. But for me, it was major surgery, but I managed it really well. You've got to have drains in. The drain came out before I left hospital. I walked home. It was not a far walk. It's a flat walk too, so I don't think I'm a superhero. But the going back to work was actually probably more self-serving than people thinking I was amazing. I got to that 2-week mark and I felt good physically, but mentally I was pretty much falling off a cliff. And what I was finding was that the kids would go to school for the day, my husband would go to work for the day, and I would wallow and just sit in that self-pity and the what-ifs and everything else. And I just... So that is, it was completely self-serving. So I wanted to go back to work because that would at least get me up and moving and it would get me out of bed for the day. That was pretty, I was just taking it bit by bit at that stage.
You talk about, you mentioned your 3 angels.
Depends what day it
is. Exactly. Can I just go back a moment? Once you had the diagnosis, you and Matthew have had the conversation, then you've got to tell the kids. Yep. Yeah. How did that go?
Everything that has been through this with the public side of it, I've always checked in with the kids and always got permission with them. I'm really strict about that. But telling them was definitely the hardest thing. I did that much Googling on how do you tell you're getting on cancer? And then with Matt, we sort of worked through it. But the one thing I think where I underestimated children, and maybe we always do that, is that they're freaking resilient. You know, there was the initial tears of shock from them. But again, because we could go to them and say, and we were fortunate to be able to do this, a lot of people aren't, but we could say, okay, this is what's happening and this is what it's going to mean and this is how the doctors said that we can fix it. So that was a story that we can tell them. And, you know, within a minute and a half, the youngest one was saying, oh, do I get time off school? You know, so that's it.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm always aware of is that it has, whereas I've been able to take the action with my own body and fix it and do this sort of stuff, I think sometimes it's hard for support people and kids and parents and because I know confidently how I'm really feeling, whereas they're going by what I'm giving them, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that trust, then they're always wondering, oh, what if? But still, it does surprise me. You know, I'm planning to go back to Bali with some friends because there was a cheap sale. And I said, I'm going to Bali. And Maddie said, no, I don't want you to go there because last time you came back from that, you had cancer.
Oh,
Had not even occurred to me. Had not even occurred to me because their life's kind of rolled on, right? Like it's just, aside from, you know, having to be gentle around mum for a couple of months, you know, they've just kind of moved through it. But they actually haven't. So it's still kind of there.
Interesting. The with that in particular, Ali, with your family and what you're sharing with us right now. I mean, as we said before, I mean, so many women have gone through this, are going through it, or you know, in the future will go through this. You telling every aspect of this contributes to some form of understanding, and because you have got that media presence and you can share it as well. But you've once you've had your surgeries and you've gone back into radio again, but then you left radio. Can you share with us why that happened? Because that was just a few weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's to be expected, but pretty quickly the narrative turned into, oh, she's leaving to take a step away to focus on her health. And that actually wasn't it. It wasn't it at all. Look, I wish I was broadcasting. Like, I love it. I generally do. And I've worked out that it's not celebrity interviews that I like, and it's not, you know, talking about maths as much as I might like to watch it secretly. But it's that connection with people. That's the thing that I crave and love. And it came down to a value proposition, and my values just didn't meet the same values of the organisation that I work with. That doesn't say there weren't great people locally, but that's just where it was. And so I came to that point where I just went, well, I'm 47, turning 48, so I'm going to be 50 soon. What is it that I want to stand for, and what do I want my children, especially, you know, the kids, seeing me stand for? And so, yeah, that's why I decided to walk away from that particular gig, I guess.
Yeah.
No, still don't have a job. No.
And in the show notes, you will see all the contact details for Ali Clarke.
She's cheap,
but she's not easy.
But I think that's, you know, and again, how freaking privileged am I to be able to do that? Because I know a lot of people don't get to do that. But my husband has a secure job until the end of the year. He's in footy, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so I've been able to give myself that breathing space to sit back and go, right, what do you actually want to do? Because I've just kind of kept saying yes to things. I never dreamed of being on the radio. It was completely accidental. And so, yeah, what do I really want? And what do I want to stand for? Yeah, I think that's it.
So wrap that part of it up, Ali, with your health. And I don't like that word journey either.
Yeah,
Can we come up with something
I
else?
know. Trip.
well, that could,
I know.
that could lead on to a whole different conversation that actually comes back to
Bali. No,
Bali.
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, but Ali, how are you today?
Yeah, good. Cancer free. Thank
Yeah.
you for asking.
Congratulations.
Which is phenomenal. But I'm not going to lie. Probably the last month especially, it's been really hard dealing with the drugs now. But I didn't have to go through chemo or radio. And to people who have gone through that, you have my absolute love and admiration. That shit is hard. But what I've basically done is, because my tumours were estrogen fed, they've put me into medical menopause. And there's no warm-up. There's no nothing. So I'm on a daily tablet and an injection. Now, what I have found, and it's different for everyone, is the pain that I have got in my joints at the moment, my knees and my feet especially, is debilitating. And for somebody who finds joy in movement and exercise and walking and netball and all that sort of stuff, to make and take that joy away from that, I've really been struggling. So have just recently, you talk about oversharing, just recently went back to the GP and said, I can't keep going like this. We need to find some other solutions. So we're working with some other medications. But even that, I've gone from, we don't realise the moment we come old until something physical happens, right? Like in my head, I'm still that 21-year-old idiot that, run around the bar 100 times or do whatever. So even I found, even mentally for me, spending and having to give time to sitting in waiting rooms to get in to see oncologists and doctors and everything else, finding time to get to chemists, spending inordinate amounts of money on drugs. I'd never taken tablets. Like, I'd prefer to go to sleep and have water than take a Panadol if that was the time of the night. And now I need a pill box almost. And that mentally has been a big thing for me. People probably sitting here laughing at me and go, just put your big girl pants on. And I know that I do. But I think that's been the change that I've seen, in my life past cancer. And my oncologist and my doctors said, because you sort of say, all right, well, this is me. Okay, so you do the mammogram, you do right, so when is it all done? And she goes, no, I'm with you now for life. This is now with you for life. And that's probably the biggest thing that I'm still adjusting to, if I'm honest.
And it's something that, again, going back to any woman that has gone through this, going through it, or may well go through it in the future, that's a really big part of the wake up call that you don't think of until you're actually in it.
No,
well.
And spreading it even further. Thank God we're talking about menopause now. Thank goodness we're talking about, the sweats, man, that is a thing. That is an absolute thing. The brain fade. And that was always, I couldn't remember the word for refrigerator the other day and I was standing right in front of it. But those are the things. And I often think, without sort of bagging one half of your demo, I often think if blokes went through this sort of stuff, man, there would be some serious solutions going on.
100%.
But unfortunately, because I can't use hormone replacement therapy because the hormones are what's feeding the cancer, I'm just slowly having to work through it all. But yeah, for anybody that's been ignored, or for anyone that's had to sit in a company, for anyone that's had to work in a service industry, for any woman that's had to do anything else and has just suffered from these symptoms, medically induced or naturally induced, man, look, don't hide it anymore. Do something about it.
Yeah.
Try to find some solutions that will work for you.
Yeah, take it from Ali. Speak up. Actually, don't. Yeah, absolutely. Ali, your life is going in an interesting direction now. and can we touch on, before I let you go, because even though you're not in breakfast radio anymore, you are a very busy lady and you are in demand because you are a brilliant MC. You do fabulous work of representing some incredible organisations, and you're a great ambassador for anything health, fitness and longevity as well. But you and Matt decided to go and get into the gin industry.
I know, which seems like a little bit counterproductive, doesn't it?
Yeah. Can you give us a little insight on that, please?
Yeah, it's something that Matt has always wanted to do. And the gin industry is Prohibition Gin. Check it out. We're awesome. But they're just a really small little group, and we've known Kate and Adam Carpenter, sort of the brains behind it, for years. They were mum and dad's from mum and dad's group at school. Yeah, we just saw that they've got all these opportunities, and business is hard. small business is hard, and they're in this space where they've got all these opportunities, but they probably just needed that little bit of an injection to be able to get them across the line. And that injection is not just resources in money, but time, expertise, and energy. So we're like tiny. I think we might own like the door stopper, but it's just something that's different. And plus, it exposes me. Whilst I've done a lot of work in, I've done my company directors course, and I've done board work and governance and understand that. And I've, done all the networking in government and bigger companies. It actually gets me closer to seeing a small business work. So I'm interested in that. So, new way of challenging my brain and finding out and learning from other people.
Yeah, that's exciting. Ali, if you had an 8-year-old Ali in front of you right now, what advice would you give her?
Oh, man, just enjoy what's in front of you. Seriously enjoy being a girl, because once you become a woman, you can't go back to being a girl. Once you learn the things and life takes little chunks out of you, it's hard to go back. So enjoy what's in front of you and be very, very kind to your body. It is the most powerful thing you will ever have. That in your mind, the most powerful thing that you will ever have at your disposal. So it's never as fat as you think it is. It's never as short. Your hair's never weird as you think it is. Your teeth are never as crooked as they. It doesn't matter. Just this is an incredibly powerful tool that if you look after, it's going to hold you in good stead.
Ali Clarke, thank you so much for joining us on Soul Centred, the podcast, and sharing your story, sharing your very candid insight as well to everything. But most importantly, just sharing you, because you're an amazing woman, you're incredibly inspiring, and I personally love you, as you know, and we're very grateful to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Back at you, girl, and I'm working on some potties, so you might have to come on board with those. All right?
Look forward to it. Thank you, Ali Clarke.